Hi, today I thought I'd share with you a handful of items that I picked up over the past several years during my vacations to Europe. And these are items that I bought as souvenirs that I brought back home and have incorporated into my witchcraft or my spellcraft practice. I've been traveling to Europe since 2012, and so I go every year. I take my mom with me because she's like my best friend. We have a lot of fun together. Usually go the first 2 weeks of September. And when we go, we usually visit at least 4 different countries in Europe and any number of cities or areas. So we pack a lot in during those vacations. But anyway, so yeah, I thought I'd share with you a few things that I got that I use in my practice. The first is this Horn Tankard. I got this last year, last September, so September of 2017. I spent about 5 days or so in Iceland, and I bought this in Reykjavik, a shop in Reykjavik that sold these Horn Tankards. This is the seal of the company that makes them. This is a 20-ounce tankard. You can feel, I mean, it's not polished or anything. This is the real horn on the outside, but on the inside it's sealed with like a food-grade acrylic. But you can drink out of this. You can put ale, wine, water. I don't put hot liquids in here. The salesperson said you probably shouldn't do that, so I stick with cold liquids. But I use this in place of a chalice every once in a while in my spells or my rituals. And one thing to note too, that these are, because I asked, and these are ethically sourced horns, so they do come from oxen that are not raised solely for their horns. They come from oxen that are raised to be draft animals and that are sometimes used for their hide and their meat. So, so that's this Horn Tankard. Now in Iceland, one of the things I love so much about Iceland is in certain sections of the country, certainly in the areas where we were traveling, we rented a car and drove to different places within the country. You have these beautiful, beautiful lava fields. They're just incredible to look at. And so I knew when I got there that I wanted to buy or find something that related to the lava or the volcanoes that are all over, that are in Iceland, because fire represents vitality, purpose, personal empowerment, motivation, and from time to time I will conduct spells that have to do with those qualities. And I thought having something from Iceland that represents fire that I can use in my spellcraft would be wonderful. So I found this. It was kind of pricey, but I splurged on it. I found this in a gift shop, but this is a piece of lava. So this is a piece of lava from Iceland, and it's just beautiful. It's kind of heavy, and I want to be careful. I don't want to drop it, but it's just this beautiful piece of lava. It has a space in the middle there where you can put a tea light, so it's kind of like a lava light. So and I will use these in spells. So basically you have this lava which represents fire, plus you have the tea light with the fire coming out. It's just really special to use in ritual. So I love that. Also in a gift shop I found this this little jar of volcanic ash, which is kind of silly, but it's kind of fun at the same time. It didn't cost very much, and it says a little bit of Iceland, and supposedly it contains the volcanic ash of that volcano in Iceland that erupted in 2010. So here's, looks like, it's the name of the volcano. It's a really long name. I can't pronounce it, but I remember, here's what the ash looks like. But I remember when it erupted because all the smoke and ash from that volcano went into the atmosphere and spread across most of Western Europe. And I remember all air traffic was grounded. No flights could take place for like 10 days. You had people stranded for 10 days. They couldn't get home. Anyway, yeah, that was in 2010 when that happened. But so again, this little jar of volcanic ash, I do incorporate this in the spells again, where I want to evoke the element of fire. So it was fun to have. Also picked up, this was in just a little souvenir shop, this bowl. It was handmade by an artisan that's from Reykjavik, and I don't have the card on the table with me right now, but She made all sorts of bowls. This was a little one because I could only afford a little one, but I love it. It's got this sort of cracked, textured outer side to it with this beautiful deep red glaze in the front. And I use this sometimes on my altar as a saltwater bowl. And then also picked up just this, again, this was just a little souvenir thing, but I thought it was fun. It's this little vial of sand. So it's got black and regular sand in there. But on the front of the vial, it has the Viking rune for good fortune. It's called it's spelled J-E-R-A. I don't know if you pronounce it Jera or Yera. Not sure how to pronounce that rune. But the Vikings, to them, this rune meant good year or good harvest. On the label, it says good fortune, but, I think of it as, celebrating prosperity and good fortune. And so I just thought that was fun to have. And I keep that on my shelf in my witchy room there. And then the last thing I picked up, this was just something I saw by accident. We were traveling, I think, from Reykjavik to, we wanted to visit the western portion of the country, to visit the lava fields and their black sand beaches and a few other places. So it was a bit of a drive. So along the way, we stopped at a grocery store to pick up groceries. And I saw this on the grocery store shelf. And it's these big, beautiful black candles. There's a pair of them in here. Look how big these candles are. Beautiful black, and of course the label's in Icelandic. I can't read it, but I wasn't able to look it up on Google Translation either. It might mean handmade, I'm not sure. So these might be handmade candles. They kind of look like they could be, but I don't have any black candles that are this big. I thought it was great to just purchase and keep. And of course I use black candles for banishing spells, sometimes binding, and but definitely banishing spells I'll usually use a black candle for. Okay, another place that I visited was Prague in the Czech Republic. Prague is probably one of the prettiest cities I've ever visited. I love it so much. Well, they're famous for among many, many things, they're famous for their puppets and, puppet shows. And to this day, they have quite a few small theaters spread throughout the city that hold puppet shows. And pretty much any souvenir shop you go to, you're going to find puppets for sale. And sometimes they just have shops exclusively for puppets. When we went into one of them, I just wanted to look and see what they had. And they're so beautiful, and some of them are so ornate. But I wanted one to bring home with me, and I didn't have a lot of space in my luggage or a lot of money to spend, so I found me a small one. But this one is a witch, basically. So I found this little witch puppet. It actually works, although I don't know how to do it. But obviously this is like that old throwback stereotype of the witch as a hag, but I liked it, and I think it's fun. I have this hanging from a shelf in my witchy room, so I have this hanging in there. So that's the witch puppet. Let's see. Another item I picked up. This was from Transylvania. I visited Transylvania. This was a little while ago. This was one of my first trips to Europe. But one of the places Mom and I wanted to visit was Bran Castle. And Bran Castle is the castle in Transylvania that Bram Stoker used for his Dracula story. So he based his Dracula novel at Bran Castle in Transylvania. So we visited it, and it was just really fascinating. Transylvania is beautiful, beautiful. We rented a car, and so we drove throughout the countryside, throughout Transylvania. It was quite an experience. But anyway, when we visited Bran Castle, of course, surrounding the castle was all these tourist souvenir shops. They're just all over the place, and a lot of the stuff that they sell pertains to Dracula and vampires, of course. So anyway, I found this book there, and I thought it was so much fun. It's called Shadow of the Vampus, and it's kind of like this gothic Victorian take on the Dracula story, except it uses cats as the characters. So it's just it's just this book. It's beautifully illustrated. It's, you know, like here's some illustrations there. It's just kind of, it's almost creepy, I would say, but very gothic and really interesting. And so basically I just have this book sitting in my Ritchie room on a couch. I thought it fit perfect because it is kind of gothic-y and vampire-like, and I just thought it would fit in my Ritchie room, so I like to keep that in there. So what I did, that's that. Let's see, this wasn't too long ago when I visited Edinburgh in Scotland. Mom and I were there, and actually I have a cousin that lives in England, so she came to visit us as well. So that was a really enjoyable trip. Anyway, Edinburgh is famous for this haunted cemetery. I think it's called Greyfriars Kirkyard, but it's a very haunted cemetery. So we went on a haunted cemetery tour at night. It was a lot of fun. But as we were when the tour ended, we were getting ready to leave the cemetery, we noticed that there was the shop within the confines of the cemetery, and the shop was in an old building, so it didn't look like a tourist shop. We only realized it was open because the lights were on and people were going in and out. It was really tiny, but basically it was this tiny little souvenir shop. And so I bought this at that shop. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but it was cool. It had all sorts of like vampire and ghost and witch stuff. It was just a lot of fun. Anyway, I saw this this witch's hat, which is basically a cone incense burner. So you put a cone incense right there, you burn it, and then there's a hole on the top of the witch's hat, and the smoke comes out. So that was just fun to find. Also in Scotland, next I have just a couple pieces of jewelry and a couple gemstones to show. Also in Scotland, this was in a souvenir shop in the Highlands. We went on a day tour to the Highlands, and we found this shop that sold, they call them heather gems. I don't know if you can see, but it's jewelry. I don't know if putting this white piece of paper makes a difference, but I'll use it anyway. But it's jewelry made from heather. So here's a ring. And so basically this it looks like a gem, but it looks like a gemstone in the middle of this ring. It comes from the heather flower. So I guess heather is actually a shrub, and it's a shrub that has these really beautiful purplish pink flowers, and they're very abundant in the highlands and the moors of Scotland. And there's a company, and according to their website, they're the only place in the world that does this, but they harvest a certain species of heather, and they take the stems of the heather shrub, they blast off the bark from the stems, and then through a lengthy process, but at some point they take the stems and they add resin, and they use like 60 tons of pressure to pressure these stems into a block that they then dye and then cut to form jewelry. So this is like a piece of heather. This is heather jewelry right here. I thought that was the coolest thing. And I actually have heather. I use heather in folklore magic traditions. Heather is said to open the portal between the land of the Fae and our own. So the portal between fairyland and the human realm can be opened through the use of heather and magic. So I just love that folklore. I love the magic of it. And sometimes I do some fairy magic, and so I might wear this ring just as part of my as my jewelry, and it's part of how I conduct my spell. But that, I never heard of such a thing until I saw it in this shop, and I thought that was the neatest thing. Also in Scotland, I found this piece of rose quartz. I found it at Inverary Castle. I kept the bag to just remind myself where I got it, but it was up in the Highlands. I don't think this has any connection to Scotland necessarily. I think it was just the gift shop of this castle. They just had some crystals that they were selling in the gift shop, but I needed rose quartz. I didn't have any. So I got this real nice, big, pretty piece. And of course, rose quartz is good for love magic. It opens up the heart chakra. It's also great for emotional healing and happiness. So I thought that was fun to find that. One last piece of jewelry I wanted to share. This is one of my favorite pieces. This was from a vacation to Venice, and I'm going to use this white piece of paper again. Hopefully you can see it. But it's a necklace. Oh no! Get down, kitty. Get down. You're not allowed up here. Okay, I got my cat up here. Hopefully she won't make a mess. But anyway, I got this necklace made from Murano glass, and Murano is a Venetian island, and they're famous for their glass making. And so I wanted a piece of Murano glass that was affordable, that I could afford, so I found this necklace. What I love about it is it's red glass. Now the back is just, no, stop that. The black is a beautiful, like deep ruby red, and it says Murano glass on the back, and then you flip it to the front, and it's a swirl of glass that has red and green and gold colors in it. I love to use this during, I love to wear it as my necklace for my magics, again, where I invoke fire as the main element. Because, fire and high heat is used to make glass. You got the beautiful red in this piece of jewelry, and I just love having that on and wearing that when I'm, again, conducting spells whose main primary focus is for empowerment, purpose, vitality, all that sort of thing. So this is that's probably one of my favorite souvenirs I ever bought from my travels. A few books to share. In Paris, I've been to Paris a few times, but only for like a few days at a time. But it is, I think, one of my most favorite places to go. Anyway, Paris has a bookstore. It's a famous bookstore. It's an English language bookstore called Shakespeare and Company, and it's in the smack dab in the middle of Paris. It's been in existence for many years, many decades, and way back in the day, all these famous artists would visit this bookstore. It's just a fun place to go. The first couple times that I visited the city, we went to this bookstore. I noticed they never had, or I could hardly find any books on witchcraft or the occult or paganism. I would ask one of the workers and they would show me to an area, but there would just be a handful of books. Well, the most recent time I was there, they actually had a nice little section. It was a nice section in the bookstore. They had a lot of occult, witchcraft, and pagan subject books. And so this time I was able to buy a few witchy books. I picked some up. One is called The Witch's Spell Book. The cutest little book. It's just adorable. And again, they're all English language books. Cute little book with like gold leaf looking outer edges. And it's just a whole bunch of little spells in this little spell book. Cute as a button. The other book I got is called The Little Book of Witchcraft. This is basically, it's like an intro to witchcraft. I think I can tell that it's written for younger folks, or for beginning the path. But I just enjoyed reading it anyway, and I just thought it was cute. So that's a little book of witchcraft. And then this book I love. It contains so many things that were new to me. It's called The Kitchen Witch, and this book has a whole bunch of recipes for drinks and foods and lotions and potions celebrating various pagan holidays, and it's just a lot of fun to have. Another thing, when you go to this bookstore, the Shakespeare and Company bookstore, every time you take your books up and go to pay for them at the cashiers, they always ask if you want to have your book stamped, and I always say yes. So every book you buy there, they'll stamp it with the Shakespeare and Company stamp in the first page or two, and I think that's fun. So that was the books. I think I'm done. Oh, I just have one more thing. Unfortunately, this is something that broke. It bums me out so much I broke this. The same year that I was in Edinburgh, in Scotland, we were also spent just a couple days before we had to go home 3 days, I think, in Ireland. And we spent a day and a half in Dublin. And in the Temple Bar area of Dublin, we were just walking around, and this guy had a table out on the street, and he was selling his wares, and he handcrafts chalices and teapots and mugs and bowls. So, so beautiful. I saw this chalice and I thought, oh, I have to buy it. And I couldn't believe how it wasn't that expensive. I really wanted the teapot, which also wasn't that expensive, but there was just no room in my luggage to take it home with me. But I had to have the chalice, so I bought it. And it was about this big. The middle part's missing. Unfortunately, I knocked it over and it broke. I'm going to see if I can glue it back together. Even if I just glue these two pieces, and I don't necessarily use it as a chalice anymore, but maybe I can keep like herbs or whatnot stored in there. But it is beautiful. A guy in Dublin, Ireland makes these. I love the symbol on the front. Beautiful glazing. This one's like brownish blue glaze. It's beautiful, and I'm bummed out that I broke it. But like I said, I think I'm going to put it back together, and I'll use it somehow. I'll have to figure out a way to use it, but I'll use it somehow. I just broke it like not even 2 weeks ago. I've had it for at least a couple years. Okay, well, I guess that's it then, and just thought I'd share a few of these items with you. And oh, one last thing I thought I'd add. I hope this video isn't too long. One last thing I thought I'd add, it has to do with my most recent trip, which was last year. It was going to Iceland, and I found this new airline to fly out of, and it's an Icelandic airline. It's called WOW Air, W-O-W Air. So it's kind of a goofy name, but it's a low-cost, no-frills airline. I mean, their rates to get to Europe are really good. Just discovered them last year, and I don't think they've been offering flights from the U.S. to Europe for very long. It might have just been early in 2017 when they started offering these flights. But compared to what I've spent on the flights in years past, it is hugely, hugely less expensive. It'll take you to Iceland, and then you can go from Iceland to pretty much all the major cities in Europe at, like I said, much less price than at least what I have paid. So that, if you're interested, that might be something to check out. Again, it's called WOW Air, and they don't, I don't know how many states or cities they fly out of. I think it's kind of limited. I flew out of Pittsburgh when I flew out. Now I live in North Carolina, but they didn't fly out close. I think there's a WOW Air that flies out of Atlanta, but my mom lives in Ohio, and we wanted to fly out together anyway, so it made sense for me to just drive up to Ohio and then pick Mom up and fly out of the Pittsburgh airport. But it's no frills, and you do have to pay extra to check luggage. They nickel and dime you for every little thing, so that does add up for sure. But still, compared to like flying out of the major airlines, it's definitely cheaper. So maybe that's something to check out if you're ever interested in going on vacation over to Europe from the United States. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.